On Second Thought, episode 354, powered by Hook'em.com. Ced Golden here as usual. Big time weekend of sports. And I've got a big time sports personality joining me this week. He is the longtime legendary voice of the Texas Longhorns and a fixture not only in Austin radio, where he's the host of the Craig Way show on AM 1300 The Zone, but also Texas high school football, where he has been on the call of the UIL State games this week on FanDuel Sports Network Southwest, aka Bally's. James Brown is dead, but Craig Way is still alive. He's the hardest working man in show business. What's up, Craig?
I was about to say when you're talking about on second thought, I was like, on second thought, you really want to have me on your deal with you? But no, it's always great. You and I go way, way back, so
we
it's a lot of fun.
we go way back like Stevie Wonder's hairline. That's way
Oh,
back. You knew me
good
when
boy.
I had hair, Craig.
Or LeBron's, right?
Oh man, he's got to let that go. LeBron and KD, let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
You got a lot on your plate, but the big one is Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock DKR, the Clemson Tigers v. the Texas Longhorns. We hope it's three, but we know it's going to be more like 3:20 because it's in Penn State SMU right before that, and that game's going to run over. You'll be in the booth with Roger Wallace, sideline reporter Will Matthews on the zone. Um, I think it's going to be a great game, and there's so many storylines, Craig. We got to start with a big one. You were on the call for that epic quarterback duel between Westlake's Cade Klubnik and Southlake Carroll's Quinn Ewers. 2020 D1 title game, 52-34, Westlake win. What a different time we lived in then. Mid-January, a pandemic. What do you remember most about that game and that experience?
If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this, fact checking might be in order here, but that game was played, I want to say like January the 20th,
Yes.
which is interesting because we know that January 20th, in addition to being Inauguration Day and my wife Linda's birthday, in addition
Nice.
to that, it's also the day of college football's national championship. And maybe, just maybe, the winner of this game has a quarterback that could wind up playing in that. The thing about that game that night was that Westlake was viewed as being the much more accomplished team. And they were in going on their three-peat run at the time. It was also really heavily played father versus son. It was Todd Dodge against Riley Dodge when they were going up there, and less was said about Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers. Now we look back on it and see what a moment in time it was. But it wasn't. I mean, yeah, they were both looked as being very good, accomplished quarterbacks. Ewers was looked at as being less accomplished than Klubnik.
Of
Klubnik
course.
was looked at as being, the lead dog on this deal, even though Quinn was looked at as being obviously a highly rated recruit. So it was a different mindset back then. And Westlake handled its business and won the state championship. But it was one of those deals where you were caught up in so many different things. And as you pointed out, said it was smack dab during the pandemic. So things were a lot different. I was calling a six-man state championship game remotely that was being played in San Angelo on
Wow.
January 6th. And I was going, what in the world is going on here? So it was a different time.
And thank God for sports. Thank
Yeah.
God for sports during that pandemic, Craig. I don't know what I would have done. I was up at 3 a.m. watching Korean baseball. And I don't even watch a lot of baseball anymore, but I was just so glad to be seeing any kind of sports being played.
You know what we were doing, said the play-by-play broadcasters of the Big 12 conference were all asked to participate in calling their own campus's Madden game championship.
Wow.
So I called the Texas championship, and young man escapes me now. He was a pitcher with the Longhorns at the time. He ended up transferring, last name Wallace, and he actually won it, the campus championship. So then after each play-by-play guy called their own specific championship, then they played against each other, and we would each call a half. Now, before all this happened, um, we had a conference call among us, the play-by-play guys, and one of them brought up, said, "Do we really want to be doing this? I mean, we're calling a video game." And one of the guys, I think it was Dave Hunziker, does Oklahoma State, said,
Oh yeah.
"Oh yeah, I want to do it. I'm ready to call a dog chasing a cat."
There you go.
And I felt the same way. We did different things for the radio station at the time. I went out and called. There was a horseshoes match in my neighborhood in Cedar Park. Some senior citizen fellas would go out to the horseshoe pit and pitch horseshoes, and so we went out there, and then somebody with a camera with me calling the horseshoe match. We were doing all kinds of weird stuff back then because it was a weird time. So I'm with you. It was when we got a chance to call actual games, it was a thrill.
Oh man. And once it was back, it was back. And I am, for someone who doesn't love crowds, I am just so excited about this. Has been the college football playoff. My biggest gripe when they announced it was it's going to take away from the regular season. And Craig, it turned out that this was the sexiest regular season of college football ever. We had elimination games in week 10 and week 11. Oh man, they can't lose their third game. Oh man. It really made it better. But what I got to ask is the conference championship games. Did SMU beating out Alabama save conference title games? Because if it's me and I'm a team that's 11-1 playing a team that I know might beat me, why would I want to even play in that game, Craig?
It's a valid question. And had Alabama been selected over SMU, then I think the hue and cry would have been conference championship games served no valid purpose, at least in determining who could play for and potentially win a national championship. There's a great deal of pride in winning your conference. Sark said from day one the goal was to try to win the SEC. But if that had happened, I think you would have seen a great movement, a lot of uproar about what's the validity of conference championship games if you're going to have a team that went 9-3 and you pass that over, and a team that was so good in the regular season and they get beat on a 56-yard walk-off field goal and they get passed over for that. It would have been very difficult, I think, for the CFP committee to justify that had they gone with Alabama.
Well, I'm just so glad that SMU's in because they can figure out a way to win in Alaska.
Yeah. Listen, they're well coached and they're good. They're good. It's going to be. I know it's going to be a different kind of world for them going into the matchup with Penn State. I know, but it's a team that's good enough to win. I think I said this on my show. All 12 teams. I'm talking Boise. I'm talking Arizona State. All 12 teams are good enough to win the whole thing if the right circumstance. They catch some teams that aren't playing well, and then all of a sudden, boom, they get clicking and get going. Because we've seen them all at various points this year. All of them look really good at times. And we've seen almost all of them, other than maybe Oregon and maybe Boise, not look that good in a couple of things. Even Boise got pushed, though, in a couple of games.
Boise had his problems against Hawaii, and Oregon had problems at Wisconsin. I mean,
yeah. So it's any team that's in that field of 12, I think, can win it at the right amount of things. Now, we can't say that about the 68-team NCAA basketball tournament. But what we love about that is the stunning upsets, the big upsets, the 12s beating the 5s. We've seen 2 16s beat 1s, but that doesn't sustain all the way through the bracket. But for the college football playoff, it's theoretical that a 9 through 12 could at least get to the Final Four. They're 2 wins from doing it.
Oh, yeah, just 2 wins. And who can't win 2? Got to ask you about Quinn Ewers. This is his last game in Austin. Depending on what you read, he might play somewhere else in college next year. He might go pro. I think he's going to go pro. That's just me. Does he get his due at Texas? I mean, look at what he's done. And I know he's not Arch, and they love Arch, but Quinn Ewers is a big reason why Steve Sarkisian is making $10 million a year.
No question.
If they run the table,
Yeah,
Craig, Quinn Ewers will be the third winningest quarterback all time at
yeah.
10, behind Colt and Vince.
And he will have done what only three other quarterbacks have done, and that's to win a national title. So I guess Eddie Phillips counts because they won the UPI, the
Yes.
coaches' title in '70. So it'd be what four others have done. But to answer your question, no, I don't think he's gotten his due. It reminds me, and this will kind of remind you of it as well. There are some, you might say, remembrances of the underappreciated nature of Chris Sims.
26-6, Chris Sims.
Yeah. The problem that Chris had was the catastrophic mistakes in the 01 championship. And that's what folks never wanted to forgive him for. But that guy played with more courage a lot of times. I'll never forget the 02 game in Nebraska when his finger was about three different directions, went over to the sidelines, this okay, and said, pull it back in. Popped it in. He throws for 407, and they stop another Nebraska home winning streak. That guy, but because the circumstances were different, A, because of what happened in the Colorado game, and B, he was coming into a situation with a beloved quarterback in Major Applewhite, and that, of course, ended up splitting the locker room and all of that. This is different, though. This is an incumbent who is, the folks love Arch, and with good reason, but the incumbent has done pretty darn well when he's there, and I think this team will go as far as he can take them.
He's 19-4 in his last 23 starts.
Yeah.
I mean, 19-4.
He knows what he's doing.
I tell you, Craig, you were there. I was there in Hot Atlanta. He was spinning that thing, man.
Yeah.
Oh, he was dealing. He was dealing on Georgia. And if Matt Golden catches that touchdown pass, we're probably off this weekend when it comes to college football.
I'm probably not missing the 2 6A games that I would be.
You're calling 6A football. You're not off. You're never off. You're never. Would have been off though on my birthday, Craig Way. I'm working. Yeah. I'm working on the 21st. It's my birthday. But you would have still found something to do. But I'm telling you, he spun that thing. He was victimized by 6 drops. They only had like 10 before then in the 8 games previous. And he hit on some beautiful throws. And if he plays like that, and they have the protection, and they run this football against a run defense that gives up 4.6 yards a carry, if they get back to doing their thing, they're going to beat Clemson by double digits.
I think if he's on his game, we know how good the interior line play is on both sides. We know how good the secondary is. Can you imagine us saying that a year ago? How good the secondary is.
Not at 116th in the country, no. PK, stand up, props. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You earned that.
Yeah. So if all of that is going the way we think it can go, yes, then they certainly have a really good chance to beat this Clemson team.
Yes, they do. So before we get out of here, 2 more questions. One, this is a really interesting matchup of coaches. They are divergent personalities and characters. Dabo just squares off NIL. He does not do transfer portal at all. And then you have Steve Sarkisian, who's a recruiting monster who has that Texas collective at his back. Is Dabo's way of doing business sustainable? I think it's why Nick Saban left, because I don't think he wanted to fight this NIL battle. But is Dabo's way of doing things, is that going to be sustainable?
Well, I think it's sustainable within your conference and can maybe get you into the playoffs. I don't think it's sustainable the long term being like to win and be in hot contention for a national championship year in, year out. Eventually, it takes its toll, I do think. Now, at his news conference the other day, he talked about how many early enrollees they had coming in, and they were going to bring everybody in the program. The other guys are redshirting here to Austin and all of that. So his way of recruiting and his program has stated its case for how they like to do it. But I think it's going to be difficult. Listen, there's only one team that was in the playoff last year that's in the playoff this year, and there's a reason for that. Sark and his staff, they develop, they recruit like war horses, they develop, and they use the portal, and they use the collective. I think you have to use all of it these days to be nationally competitive, to have a chance to win a national title, to be in the conversation every year.
I think so too. And you look at Andrew Makuba, you look at Trey Moore. What a great second half of the season Trey Moore had.
Yeah.
Because we weren't talking about Trey Moore in the first half. Phil
No.
Bill, I mean, just so many guys that came in. Savea came in and helped where they needed help. Before we get out of here, I'm
And by
gonna
the way, let me say this, Ed.
go ahead.
I have no empirical evidence to back this up, but
I
I
love
would
the
say
word.
Andrew Makuba may lead the SEC at the very least, and maybe even the country, in being called for targeting and then having it overturned.
I'm writing about that. I mean, he needs to be a defense lawyer because I thought he ended Gunnar Stockton's life.
I'm telling you, it looks scary.
I was
He
like,
hits.
we're in the press box. We go, he's not moving. Well, the helmet was moving. It was rolling over to the sideline.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, how did he get away with that? And then
And Makuba has a way of getting enough shoulder in there and keeping the head above to where the head only grazes or whatever, the shoulder makes initial contact.
it's amazing.
It
It's
is.
amazing. But he's living on, well, I guess he can just go all out this time because he doesn't have any more college games. Well, yes, he does if they win.
Yeah.
He can't go all out to the championship games.
No, that's right.
He needs to wait. So I'm gonna give you these four matchups, and you tell me who do you think is gonna win with a one sentence answer. Indiana and Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Why?
I think Notre Dame win. I just think they're playing about as well as anybody right now. Indiana's a great story. Signetti is a heck of a coach, and I think he's going to do big things. They're going to be a player in that, I think. But I think Notre Dame and playing at home helps. But I just think the way the Irish are playing, I'd give them the edge.
They're my dark horse. I think they're gonna make it to the championship game. They have a path, Craig.
I totally
Yeah,
agree.
they have a great path. Uh, SMU at Penn State.
Hard to pick against the Nittany Lions in Happy Valley. You got 109,000. It'll be a natural whiteout because there'll be snow everywhere. It'll be that kind of thing. SMU is good enough to beat them. And if Penn State's not on their game, and it's kind of a weird deal not having the backup quarterback who's into the portal, but the frontline guys are still there. So I'd give the edge to Penn
Me
State.
too. I take Penn State, but if SMU wins that game, there's your dark horse because
Yeah, I agree.
they can beat anybody in their bracket if they can win in the snow.
Agreed.
Tennessee at Ohio State, man, that's intriguing.
It is, especially given the grumbling that's going on in Columbus.
Well, it's
But
not it's not Michigan.
yeah,
When you got fans going, man, I wish it was a road game.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But in that weather and environment, I'm a slight edge to the Buckeyes over
yeah,
there.
that might be my upset special. I'm not sure yet. I wouldn't touch it if I was gambling. We both
Yeah.
know I don't gamble, Craig, but if if I was gambling, I wouldn't touch it. And Texas, Clemson.
Well, it's kind of like when they used to do the old Tom Landry show, the local thing with the cowboy helmet and the potted plant sitting in there, and Brad Sham would be doing it, or Frank Gleaver would be doing it, and
Brad
say,
with a beard.
yeah,
Brad
and they
with
would
a
go
beard.
down all the picks, and they'd get to the Cowboys. And finally, Coach, how about the Cowboys and Cardinals? And Tom Landry would say, "Well, I think I'm going to stick with us one more week to beat St. Louis," something like that. And so yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Longhorns this week.
Me too. Me too. I have them I have them winning this week. I have them winning in Atlanta over Arizona State. And maybe we reconvene when they play Oregon. We'll see how
Yeah,
that offense got to get revved up and Bert Auburn, aka Sampson, he's gonna have to those flowing locks gonna have to equate to some more made kicks. He can't quit.
yeah. The 51 yarder I can kind of forgive a
That's
little bit.
fine.
Those get a
That's
little bit,
fine.
but you got to make the 42 yard.
Got to
That,
make the
that's
42 yard. All
and
these
and,
misses from 40
and
plus.
yeah, and think about this, Ed. This is the last outdoor game he'll play, and the weather is going to be good. It's going to be mid 60s. So
And
if he bangs a few through, I think that helps out. Everything else is under the roof from
climate
there on out.
control. Hopefully he's kicking more extra points than field goals this weekend. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm
man,
with you.
I will see you there. I know people that turn off the TV and turn on the radio and try to sync that up. Boy, that sounds kind of convoluted, but I know people who do it because they like to hear you on the call.
Well, bless their heart. Let me tell you this: if my wife can do it, anybody can do it. All she does is she pauses live TV, lets our radio broadcast catch up, and then takes it off pause, and then it syncs.
It would take me 30 minutes to sync it up. I'm not as technologically savvy as Linda, but I can understand that. You're telling me that she's not coming to the game. She's staying home.
She's staying home because there's, yeah, she says Christmas to prepare for. So that's why she's going to say there's a lot she's got going on with that.
Happy wife, happy life.
No, I know it.
All I got to say about that. Well, man, always a pleasure, brother. I will see you in the press box. Craig Way on the call Saturday, Texas v. Clemson, 3 p.m., 1300, The Zone with Roger Wallace and our buddy Will Matthews. Man, always a pleasure, Gray. I'll see you later.
Hey, you bet, said. Love visiting with you.
Later, brother.